Today I kind of want to talk about learning and unlearning. So we have these habits, these beliefs that, throughout our age, they get more cemented, and it becomes so hard that it's hard to, crack open and unlearn. And I was actually watching this TED Talk, and the woman gave a really good example.
Take the example of Destin Sandlin, who programmed his bicycle to turn left when he steered it right, and vice versa. He called this his backwards brain bike, and it took him nearly 8 months just to learn how to ride it kind of sort of normally.
That a man re-engineered a bike so that when he turned right, the bike would go left, and when he would go left, the bike would go right. And you would think, okay, obviously through muscle memory, the first few hours he'd probably kind of fumble, but he'd figure it out. It took 6 months for him to unlearn whatever those habits, that he had formed, and relearn how to ride a bike almost fluently with that sort of model. And that got me thinking that, and I, at least with me, I'm finding with age, I'm finding myself struggling to unlearn. And what I mean by unlearn is I have to forfeit certain habits or specifically beliefs, whether that's beliefs in, I'm not talking about like personal beliefs about religion or anything like that, but just I have to unlearn things that the way I believe the world works, the way I believe I fit in my role or I fit in an organization, what I contribute, unlearning that, and then relearning, new information to become better. I find myself struggling with age. When I was young, that's the norm. You think that this is why the sky is blue and the teacher teaches you the science behind it. When you're a kid, you're so open and adaptive to just unlearn and relearn. We all learn that Santa Claus is not real, right? We were able to unlearn. Sorry, I've killed it for you. But now with age, I am actually struggling, and I think this comes back to the topic of like how we take criticism. It's kind of a form of like someone's telling you what you've been doing, the habits you're doing, the way you're doing things is wrong. And it's hard for your body or for your brain to just, forfeit what you believe and just be at net zero and just take in new information. How have you guys struggled or not struggled with, learning and unlearning?
Well, I think for me, I see it often, all the time, and everyone struggles with it. Like, as you mentioned, it took an intelligent person that was able to reverse engineer a bike to be able to switch from left to right. Like when he goes left, the bike went right and vice versa. If it took him 6 months to do something so basic, think of how hard it is to think and learn, like unlearn something, right? So I know it is a very, very, very difficult thing. I struggle with it. Everyone else struggles with it. But I think the key is having just an open mind to allow for that to kind of mindset to come in. So what I mean by that is when you hear a new topic or a new idea, instead of just justifying why that idea already exists, right? Because I see a lot of times they say, hey, why don't you do this? Or why don't you think about it this way? They're already justifying why the world is the way it is, right? And those are the hardest people that I find to kind of reconvince them something different. However, someone that is able to say, oh, I wonder, that's a good question. Why is it like that, right? Are the ones that are able to I guess, unlearn something.
So your advice is be curious, always come in with a curious mindset?
Yeah, like if when someone says, why not this or why that, don't already justify the conventional thinking, right? What you already know. If you can say, I wonder why that's the case. When you allow for that to happen, you at least allow for new ideas to come in. Otherwise, you're just justifying what already exists, right? Most inventions, creations, everything was formed by when people thought against the norm, right?
Okay, fair enough. So do you feel like you have a firm kind of understanding of how the world works, kind of how society works, or even if you want to go less broad, how
let me give you an
job?
example, right? So when someone told me there is a flat earth theory, I'm like, at first I'm like, what a dumb thing to think. Then I'm like, let me hear it out. He's a flat earth, right? The flat earth, right? So at least let me hear it out, right? If I jump to already shooting as a no, I'm not allowing for any new information to come. At the end, I'm like, you know what? What sold it for me was the fact that when I'm in the air, I can actually see the, or when I'm looking at the horizon on the lake or an ocean, I can see the curve, right? Or when a ship goes, it doesn't fall off, it just goes slowly, if you're looking into the distance. So, but I didn't assume that's dumb. I'm going to dismiss it. So as soon as you do that, you're not allowing for unlearning to happen. And it's such a difficult thing to do because we're almost trained to think of, as when we hear new ideas, we just think it's dumb, right? Whether it be the Egyptian pyramids, how would they build 5,000 years ago? Was it built by a different species, or if it was built some other way, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I'm allowing for that idea to at least come into my mind, right? When you're just shooting it down immediately, how are you going to let unlearning happen?
Thoughts?
Wow, it's kind of open-ended.
Yeah.
Unlearning, if you've been taught something from birth, per se, and you go through your entire life looking at things one way, and all of a sudden somebody's telling you something different and you haven't seen it anywhere else, you're going to question it. But certain people who are critical thinkers are not going to be so quick to downplay what they're being told. They're going to hear you out, and if you can provide facts and certain details for them to further do their research, then they'll be more open to start looking at things different. And I feel that people who look at things different are usually pretty successful in life because they're looking at different things and finding different ways to do different things. They're not just doing the same thing over and over and over just based on what they're being told. And, you know, it's a wide spectrum because you talk about even with regards to religion, right? You know, people have been told one thing for, I don't know, their whole life. They're going to different churches, you know, but again, now you get old and you start looking at things different. You're like, wait a sec, this is not what I was taught. This is what I was told, you know? So then now you start doing a bit more research versus what you're being told. You're now going to do your own research to determine if this is really true or this is a different way to look at it, right? But you also can apply it to even work, right? And maybe she can speak on this. Is almost like anybody who's been with the company for a certain amount of time, anytime they're using a certain software, they get comfortable with that software, they don't want to change, right? Even though a new software is coming in to be more efficient, you know, adds all these features, they don't want to change because they're so used to doing something and they're just afraid, right? So you have people who are a bit, you know, newer to the company. They're like all on board to be like, this is awesome. Then you have the people who've been doing it for 15 years or just completely afraid. They don't want to learn, right? They find every excuse.
Where they don't want to unlearn. Right? They don't want to unlearn.
Yeah, they don't want to unlearn.
People don't want change.
People don't like, people
It's a
fear
level,
change.
It's a level of comfort,
Yeah.
right? They're comfortable doing something, and now it's putting them in an uncomfortable position because now they feel like they're going to either make a mistake or it's going to expose their inability to do certain things, right? Because now as a manager, you're going to be like, well, here's something new that's supposed to be benefiting you, and you can't find a way to learn it. I'm going to start questioning your capabilities with everything else moving forward because now you're restricting your growth. If you can't handle something like this with regards to what's going to benefit the company, how can I look at you for something else with regards to even a promotion if you can't even adapt?
You got to adapt to change.
There you go.
I think the one of the struggles with unlearning, the truth is a lot of it is positive reinforcement. Religion's a great example because when you're a kid, if you have religious parents, they shower you with positive reinforcement. You're going to pray and the news had said it was going to be raining, but then you prayed and it was sunny outside. It's like, see, that prayer worked. Positive reinforcement. You wake up early like, Dad, I want to go to church. And he's like, wow, that's so great, son. It's amazing. We're going to go to church. Positive reinforcement. And so when you get to a certain age where maybe those ideas hit into conflict, you're thinking back to all of the times in your life where things worked out with that belief system. So for someone to come and tell you, no, it's wrong, it becomes very difficult. And that we can take that from religion to anything. If you've been thinking of your work in a certain way, the way you do things, right? The software you use, and it always brings you results. You have all positive reinforcement in the world. When someone tells you, no, this one's better, it's just so hard to break. So it's tough when you have that positive reinforcement. You just got to be able to adapt to change because unfortunately, change is inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like I said, with age, I'm finding myself, I'm way more cemented in my thoughts, probably because I just have all these years of accumulated positive reinforcement. And I am realizing with a lot of the people that have a lot of success, they are extremely curious and they're kind of always open to new ideas, sometimes even to a fault. They'll literally just take any new idea that comes into mind. Oh, that software is a little bit better. Okay, let's switch to that one. I'm like, what we're going to...
And I don't know if I think it does get cemented with age. And I'll let Keisha chime in as well. However, what I found, Rami, is every time I've witnessed like the successful ones, quote unquote, they are the ones, even many of them were 15, 20 years older than me. And they were still willing to like have the attitude of like, oh, really? Is it better? Oh, let me check this out. Or, hey, David or Bob, I read this book or I saw this video. It was pretty cool. Oh, let me check it out too. So they have that, you know, the mindset of like, oh, maybe it's right. Like they always have that curious mindset. And I think when you do that, you allow for unlearning to happen.
Well, family and personal life aside, I am not cemented or committed to anything. Again, family, personal life aside. I'm always open to learning new ideas, and I accept the fact, and I live my life that I don't know a lot. I know plenty, but there's still so much for me to learn and for me to adapt and grow with. So I think unlearning, like I work in software, and we've had customers who've hired us, spent millions of dollars to take our software, and then going through the process with them, understanding their workflow. They're basically wanting us to recreate what they have in their old system in the new system.
Yeah.
And so it's my job to educate and help them unlearn, the habits that they had with their old software and their old way of doing things, in order to implement this new software to make them more efficient and more successful. So unlearning is a skill. It has to be learned. You have to be open and flexible and adaptable. And I think if you want to be successful, you have to learn to not hold on to things and take it so personal. I try not to take things personal, and I think that's why I'm able to adapt to the new job. Like I never worked in software before, never in my life. My background was insurance, and then all of a sudden I got parachuted into a role where I'm doing software. I'm learning configuration. I'm learning to write rules and do things in the application that I had no experience in before. My business knowledge in insurance, but I had to unlearn and put that piece that I was comfortable with aside in order to be successful in the role that I have now. So
you have high AQ, right?
Yes,
Adaptability quotient.
yes.
So that's good. And actually, this just brings up one more point. If you are an employee somewhere and the company comes and said, hey, we're going to try that. We're going to switch from Slack to Microsoft Teams, and you're ripping your hair out, and all the other employees are also ripping their hair out and complaining, don't be a sheep. Be the one guy who's like, I'm ready. Be the one guy's like, yo, send me the tutorial. Be the one guy's like, I watched everything. I already have it set up on my computer. I'm good to go. All your managers and your directors and your VPs are like, that's the winner. That's the next guy we got to bring up top. So don't be a sheep.